Good morning, everyone. I see the numbers coming in, so I just wanted to acknowledge all the participants that have already joined us. Um, it's now 1 minute past 11, and yeah, we'll just wait a little bit for everybody to come in. I think while we wait, may I please just kindly ask that you introduce yourself in the chat, let us know where you're from, what you do, and the organization that you represent. What are you looking forward to in terms of today's conversation? So while we're waiting for everybody to kind of flood in, take a second, type into that little chat box, and yeah, and tell us a little bit about yourself. Okay, and then we'll get started very soon. Okay, I think I think this is a healthy number. I know that people will probably come in. Um, Yeah, I'm sure they'll come in a couple of minutes. I think just before we get started with our webinar, I just need a very big favor, big ask to ask everybody. Can I ask you, oh my goodness, I feel bad even for asking this. Can I ask everybody to quickly switch on their cameras so that we can take a screenshot for an article that we're going to be preparing for our CIO website. So please can I ask you to put on your cameras so that my colleague Grace, who I think is connected, has jumped on, can sort of take a picture. Okay. I think we can get started. It's now 5 minutes. Grace, a thumbs up from your end? Okay, it's fine. I'll check in with Grace. Thank you very much, everyone. I'm really so excited about this webinar that we're putting together. My name is Jackie Mapala. I'm the content producer for CIO South Africa. You know, this is a conversation that is definitely ahead of its time. It's a landmark moment, not just for South Africa, for the continent, I think, as a whole. Today, we are focusing on having a conversation and a webinar that we've titled Retail Reimagined, Leveraging AI for a Competitive Age. Today, we're not just talking about retail and technology. We're witnessing the unfolding of a bold new chapter in Africa's digital journey. You know, so across the continent, a powerful shift is underway. Africa is no longer waiting to adopt innovation created elsewhere. We are building it ourselves and redefining what is possible. In a groundbreaking collaboration between Liquid Intelligent Technologies, a business of Cassava Technologies, and global AI leader, Nvidia, Africa is launching its first dedicated AI factory. I almost feel like I need to say to everybody, clap, 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 because this is a historic step forward in our technological innovation. With its first phase set to open in South Africa in June 2025, this initiative is more than just an infrastructure. It's a symbol of Africa's ingenuity, vision, and ambition. It's a statement to the world. Africa is not just the future of technology, Africa is now. And today's conversation is about how AI can harness, I'd rather say maybe AI can be harnessed not just to transform retail, but to drive real economic value, create opportunities, and set new standards that inspire the world. It is therefore my pleasure to introduce our partner in this webinar, the visionary behind this innovation, Liquid Intelligent Technologies, a business of Cassava Technologies. To help me unpack this watershed conversation, it is my pleasure to introduce my powerhouse panel, Dr. Prince Abudu, who is the head of technology for artificial intelligence at Cassava Technologies, as well as Boyd Kislett, who is the chief business officer at Liquid Intelligent Technologies. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Jess, I think we should use you in all our openings for all our meetings.
Yes.
Thank you for the vote of confidence. And to our audience, I definitely want you and encourage you to tuck in, please engage, share your questions in terms of today's topic in the chat. We will give you 15 minutes, just a little bit before we end this conversation, just for Boyd and Prince to answer your questions. I'm so excited about this. Dr. Prince, Boyd, please take it away.
Super, Jackie. Just confirming I'm sharing. And yeah, thank you to yourself for that introduction. And thank you to the CIO community for joining us today on a really exciting journey. My name is Boyd Chislett. I am the Chief Business Officer at Liquid Intelligent Technologies, a division of Cassava Technologies. And today we really want to just share a little bit about our AI strategy, our AI factory, and what we're doing as a business that we believe is transformative for the continent. Before I do that, I would like to just create some context in relation to how we've evolved as a group over the last 20 years. And the journey into the AI factory is a very deliberate set of investments that we've made across the continent. And I really want to just make certain that we understand that AI in isolation and an AI factory in isolation is, whilst important, is about an ecosystem. So if I go back a slight step, the Cassava Group has 5 key assets that we focus on. And each of these assets are very deliberately intertwined to provide our customers and our partners a very clear stack of services. First and foremost, born out of the connectivity stable is our Liquid Intelligent Technologies connectivity business, and really the backbone of providing enterprise-grade connectivity to not just South Africa, but to the continent. Over 110,000 kilometers of our own fiber that we own, manage, and deploy across multiple enterprises. And that really drives the backbone of ensuring that we have an enterprise-grade service across the continent. That's obviously supported by other connectivity means, being our undersea cable assets, our satellite assets, as well as our connecting via our data centers. The second part that's really important is the co-location business in Africa data centers. So whilst we have a significant fiber footprint and a connectivity footprint, the investments we've made in South Africa, we have 2 data centers in Johannesburg, we have 1 in Cape Town, we have a data center asset in Kenya, currently in Lagos, Nigeria, and we are in the process of deploying data center assets into Morocco and to Egypt. And really, what's important there is that this connectivity backbone and the data center assets that we have create an enterprise mesh network for our customers to start sweating these assets around AI and how you grow your footprint into Africa. The third part of our business, which is critical in the evolution of digitization and probably not the fourth, but the fifth industrial revolution, is our cloud and cybersecurity business. Our cloud business is prefaced on a multi-cloud strategy across the globe with hyperscalers such as Microsoft, AWS, GCP, but not just providing basic cloud services and modern workplace and licensing, but actually providing professional services across the footprint that allow our customers to better integrate into the data center environment that we have, as well as the cloud ecosystem. And then finally, our cybersecurity assets that we have deployed. We have CSOCs that we've deployed also across the footprint. So when you start zooming out and you look at the infrastructure that we've deployed across the continent, there's a fiber network of enterprise grade that we've built over many years that we own and manage and monitor ourselves. Data center assets, likewise, that we've built, maintain, monitor ourselves. We have our cloud and cybersecurity business that provides our customers with a far more succinct digitization of their journey into the cloud. And finally, that allows us to shift to today's conversation around our compute business, our Cassava AI business. And that is a critical component. It can't be seen in isolation. It's an ecosystem of assets that we've created. An AI factory without connectivity, an AI factory without enterprise connectivity, an AI factory without a well-deployed, world-class facility from a co-location perspective cannot operate, and a world-class facility where you have proper cybersecurity and cloud deployment throughout. So really just summarizing, and I'm going to hand over to Prince to shift very quickly to our AI factory. We're across 35 countries with 15 of them local incorporation. Our data center growth is key to our AI strategies, which we'll touch on in a short while. And supporting that is a true understanding of the local landscape and partnerships with our 2,700 plus employees that we've covered throughout. So that really is just some context around the ecosystem we've created. I want to hand over to Prince Abudu, who will just take you through a little bit around our factory and our view on why we've got this investment and what this investment means for us. Over to you, Prince.
Thank you very much, Boyd, for that introduction. So I'll talk about briefly what the AI factory is. And I want to start a bit on the agentic side. So for some of you who may be on the call and are familiar with the evolution of AI, we start from this 2012, really, when the AlexNet model was produced. And that model was sort of a turning point. It was a computer vision based model, was a turning point for AI, and actually using deep neural networks for applications, real world applications. And after that, we segue into these perceptive AI era, where you have speech recognition systems, recommendation systems, you have medical imaging type of scenarios, AI being applied to that, and this AlexNet model being productionized into those sort of solutions. And after perceptive AI, recently we started talking about generative AI, and many might believe that that's when AI really started, but it's been quite a few years. Since about 1958, we're talking about pattern recognition. So AI has been around for some time, but in many various forms. And on this generative AI side, we're talking about this AI that can generate audio, images, text, and we've seen the arrival of models like Gemini, Copilot, Anthropic's Claude, all on the generative AI side. And as we mature the generative AI side, we turn into multimodal AI, where AI doesn't just produce text, but starts to also understand visual images and like audio, and start to integrate all these kinds of what you would term in the human biological form sensory experiences, start to infuse all of that into its own understanding to create this multimodal AI. And recently, for those of you that follow AI and tech, you will see from Microsoft's Build event and also Google's Input Output event that there's been significant announcements and shifts that are showing that companies are turning to agentic AI now. And the whole idea of it is that how can AI have end-to-end autonomy and actually operate as an agent without any human intervention? So Microsoft is revamping its entire code stack to actually reflect that. And we see that Google is also revamping its entire web search strategy to turn into a concept they're turning agentic web, right? So so it's pretty hard to ignore where we're going now. And a few days ago, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg also announced that he was going to create agents for small businesses, right? So you can see how we're turning into this, and it's very important that organizations and companies start to understand this shift and what it would mean in this era. So now I'll talk a bit about the AI factory. So if you can zoom in on to that. To enable this agentic era that I've just described, it is requisite that we actually have an AI factory. And what that means is that how can we actually industrialize the production of AI systems, right? So we're talking about how do we automate and industrialize the entire process of creating and managing intelligent models, right? So AI factory's concept is simply data in, intelligence out. So it's an AI factory because in a factory, you have your raw materials, which is the data. So you input that, and you in your this raw data, which is images, text, figures, sensors from signals from sensors, is your raw material. And then after you have that raw material, it has to be cleaned, it has to be prepared. So that the factory is transforming this data into actually this raw materials into usable materials. That's like a typical manufacturing setting, right? You have raw materials, you transform them into usable materials. The same way is how an AI factory works. You clean, you sort, you label your data, you standardize it, you normalize it, you eliminate all erroneous data, you remove all, you augment all the missing data, which is a typical issue that many organizations face. And all of that is being done using pipelines, tools that are already automated, right? And after that has been done, the cleaning and preparation, you go into your designing of training your AI models, which is synonymous to an assembly line, right? So you consider what is the architecture of the model I want, how am I going to train it, how am I going to tune hyperparameters, and how am I going to test and validate and do that quality control piece the same way you do on a production line, right? You have to do quality control on whatever is being produced. So once you have done that, this AI factory now has to deploy, after the validation piece, you deploy the product, which is your use case in the case of AI. But then the key part is that in traditional software systems, you have to have a fixed schedule of actually maintaining your product and checking whether the updates are still relevant and updating it. In an AI factory, you have an automated process where the model actually can retrain itself and self-deploy with changing data. So that's what constitutes an AI factory, this end-to-end process of introducing data to a system and then actually coming out with a use case that can then self-monitor and self-maintain. So that concept is what we have brought now with Cassava's first AI factory, where we have invested in the network, the storage, the compute, and the GPUs, the NVIDIA HGX H200 GPUs. And on top of that, we've superimposed the layer of NVIDIA Enterprise AI software. And on top of that, we've superimposed as well virtualization layers where even developers can come and access this compute through us. And on top of that, we're saying we can also offer the API as a service. So that whole end-to-end ecosystem of compute and platform and application then constitutes what we're terming the AI factory. So there's a lot on the use cases. I'm not going to get into the details now. I think we will get to that on the as we get into the discussion on use cases. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. That was deeply insightful, and it just really shows just ahead of our time. We really are as Africans, and yeah, watch out world. I think now let's not get into our panel discussion. and really delve deeper into some of the issues that you've touched on in terms of the AI factory. But I think the important why everybody's here, the focus around what is the impact, what's the significance of this on retail as a whole. So, Prince, I think maybe let me start with you. I mean, we've heard you talk about AI factories in the presentation. What are they really? What defines an AI factory, and how does it go beyond traditional IT or analytics setups?
Yeah, thank you for that. So, from the introduction I gave it the definition of an AI factory and what it is. So I'll just focus more on the I'll focus more on how it goes beyond traditional analytics, because that's quite important, traditional IT. So in your AI factory, basically you're doing a full-on integration of your data ingestion, your feature engineering, model training and deployment, and the monitoring, right? So there's we have this sort of like case where most people have been building small POCs of AI on their laptops, or and trying to deploy very minimal AI which fails to scale. But the AI factory is saying, you know what, we have to move out of that POC era and get into an MVP and production scale deployable AI. So AI factory enables you to deploy AI at production scale. So what that does is that if you look at traditional IT operates in silos. So you have your data warehouses are separate from your business intelligence tools. You have manual processes. Everyone is managing a different system. So that results in delay. But your AI factory actually has capabilities and components that can unify your data automatically, extract the relevant features for you to train your model. And if you look at traditional IT as well, you're looking at CPU type of bound processes that can take sort of days for you to even apply AI models and train them. So you actually don't have the capability to do real-time inference. But when you come to an AI factory, you can do real-time inference because you have this GPU graphic process units or tensor processing units that can actually speed up that process. And also in traditional IT, you require significant custom engineering. Each time something changes, you have to go back and change the code base. But in the AI factory setting, when a new use case is realized or when the data changes, these pipelines can automatically detect those changes and then adjust the model automatically, which is what I had explained earlier on. So, and lastly, the component of you don't have to actually do fixed updates to your model because it's an AI factory. It does have that automated component. So you have reusable type of containers that are within the NVIDIA AI enterprise, which we're now bringing through our licensing to our customers to say, now you can have feature catalogs, you can have inference services that you can automatically use. They don't have to rebuild everything from scratch. You can spin up AI use cases in matters of weeks, not months. So I'll leave it at that for now. Thanks, Jackie. I cannot hear you, Jackie.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Technology is great when it works, and when it doesn't work, it's not. So we know that Cassava Technologies has made significant investments in AI infrastructure. Can you share with us, Boyd, how Cassava AI Factory initiative is positioned to serve customers across Africa, and what differentiates it, at least in terms of its approach, from traditional models?
Thanks, Jackie. So I think on the outset, we just need to be clear that the notion of an AI factory is not exclusive to ourselves and the conversation we're having today. It's an important step for the continent. There are a couple of pieces to it. One, for me, is that Cassava Technologies is an organization that was born out of the continent and has its priority and its focus on uplifting the economies across the continent of Africa. And I think that gives us a unique advantage with our operations across the continent. That's the one piece. The other piece for me is, there are over 2,000 languages across the continent of Africa. It is probably the most linguistically diverse geography on the globe. And the notion of localization, local relevance, and making certain that an organization like Cassava, born out of the continent, is able to create very specific and unique focused solutions for the continent, I think is very important. You cannot look to partner with Eurocentric and US organizations that are not necessarily representative on the continent. And that leadership that we've got from a Cassava Technologies perspective, we believe is a very important layer outside of the technology. The technology is the one component, but making certain that your local language models are relevant to a particular community. I was having a conversation with one of our retail customers, and how do we create local language in KwaZulu-Natal in the Zulu language that is predominant in that region to ensure that they differentiate themselves? Now, that conversation with a Eurocentric or a US-based type organization, I think could happen, but the full understanding and appreciation of the diversity of the continent, I think, is critical. The other piece for me that is really important is, and Prince touched on it, is as AI moves into a rapidly evolving agentic AI environment, the pure amount of computing power that organizations are going to need to access to ensure that they shift from generative AI to an agentic AI strategy is very capital intensive. And to deploy that capital in one's own organization, when you're a retailer, when you are looking to go and ensure your capital is deployed into store openings, making certain that you're providing quality customer experience, the AI factory for us allows us to take that capital burden and ensure that that capital burden is borne by ourselves, and we create a managed service for our customers and partners. And then last but not least is, because of the localization of the asset and the focus on the continent, the commercial models that we are looking to deploy are local commercial models with, for example, in South Africa, ZAR-based pricing. What Prince didn't touch on is that our first deployment in the coming 4 to 5 weeks is 3,000 GPUs coming into South Africa. And those will be deployed across our facilities in Cape Town and in Johannesburg. But there's another 9,000 GPUs as part of our rollout plan for the continent. And that's really important because that capital investment that our chairman and our board have put forward is something that's really important to help uplift the economy. So there's two parts for me. There's the technology component, but more so the local relevance and how do we create diversity for the assets that we have, Jackie.
I think that is so powerful. I mean, as you're speaking, I'm literally noting down and asking myself how just these language models, what they will mean in terms of higher conversion rates for retailers, and just the fact that customers now start feeling as if they are seen and they're understood by retailers as a whole. I think is definitely going to make a big impact in the space. And for Prince, the question I want to pose to you is that, there is a lot of AI discussions that focus on software, but infrastructure matters too. So what role does NVIDIA play in enabling to compute, or at least to compute the backbone of Cassava's AI factory? And how critical is it that this hardware foundation is done in real time for retail AI workloads?
Yeah, thanks, Jackie, for that question. So, I mean, simply put, NVIDIA is to AI what Cisco is to networking, right? Like, so they have over 90% market share when it comes to GPU graphic processing units and chips in the entire world. So it's a logical choice for the leading, since they're leading in that hardware piece. And if you take a look at it, the chips that NVIDIA has created are not just that they compete at global scale, but they actually, they're one of the only companies in America. There's also a company called AMD. So they are the only companies that can actually provide the needed performance, maturity, and global support and ability to create these chips and have them at production scale. So for us, it was a logical choice to choose them. And the role that they play is that when they manufacture the chips, which are the graphic processing units, they have the best chips in the world. If you look at currently we're talking about the Hopper graphic processing units, which is what Cassava has acquired. So the 3000 GPUs that Boyd was referring are HGX H200 GPUs, but we're actually following NVIDIA's reference architecture. So what that means is that as new chips are coming, we're actually going to be having that capability as well in our data centers. How important is that? So if you look at it, there's an example I can give you of when Africa wants to acquire, like, let's say, new airplanes. Typically, we always get the older models of the airplanes because they are cheaper. And if you look at any regional flight across Africa, you always have the oldest models, and you don't even have like a way to charge your phone or like a really big screen to watch anything. So what we're doing is we are going against that approach to say we don't need to always get the older chips because they're cheap. So we're actually going for the higher end of these chips. So in partnership with NVIDIA, we also become an NVIDIA cloud partner, which means we're not just offering the hardware that NVIDIA provides, but we're also offering the tools, the platform, the services that NVIDIA has in a close-knitted partnership with them. And what that comes with also is this idea of use cases, right? So there's industry scale use cases that NVIDIA has created to drive demand for their own GPU infrastructure. And it's the same thing that we're coming to say, we're not just a hardware player. We're not just playing on the infrastructure side at the given moment, but we actually coming into this space where we can offer use cases, especially retail specific use cases that are already pre-built that can just be integrated for retailers. So that's something that we also have there. I'm not sure if I have answered your question, Jackie.
Yes, indeed, you have. I don't know if Boyd wants to add anything else before I move on to the next question.
No, I think the localization and the partnership in NVIDIA is around relevance on the continent. And for me, I want to just go back to that because once, with the ecosystem that we've built in terms of our connectivity assets, our data center assets, and then inarguably the leading supplier of GPUs on the globe, NVIDIA, we think that's a powerful partnership for us. But I really want our colleagues on the call to really understand that it's this localization of how do we make AI in a real world environment work for our customers, not just retailers, but any organization. The economies across Africa are in different stages of evolution and growth. If we look at South Africa, we've been in a cycle of really depressed economic circumstances. So, how do we fight for customer? How do we fight for customer service? And creating unique value propositions that are localized, I think, are really important for our customers.
Excellent. Prince, many organizations struggle with fragmented data, or at least data, and AI adoption silos. So how can the Cassava AI Factory help retailers overcome some of these challenges, especially environments with complex legacy systems or diverse regional markets and fragmented data?
It's a fantastic question. So if we think about it, the notion that we've been following is that many people think that before you can apply AI, you have to have a complete transformation of your IT and your data, right? So you've had things like digital transformation, and I'm sure every company has that kind of strategy or has gone through one, right? And through those strategies, some companies have then evolved to say, let's move our data from on-prem to cloud. Let's try to break the data silos. Let's create an integration layer. All of that is fantastic. But really what we're saying is that the AI factory sort of speeds up your digital transformation because you don't have to spend 5 years first saying that, you know what, we're not ready for AI because our data is in silos. So let's spend the next 10 years trying to get our data to be integrated. The AI Factory is saying that we can speed up that process because we actually have the tools that can take your data sitting in the silos, automatically create an integration layer, feed it into a model, create use cases for you. So Cassava's AI Factory can actually help retailers overcome that quite quickly without having to go through a 5-year, 10-year digital transformation journey. So that's something that we will be keen to talk to you about. But the idea of these data centers that we're creating is that with NVIDIA Enterprise AI, in the offering that we have, we actually have feature catalogs that can automatically ingest POS data, ERP data, loyalty data, chat data into these low latency GPU accelerated tables. All of it is part of the software stack that we offer. And then we actually replace those siloed spreadsheets in an automated way. That's the whole idea of an AI factory. Once you do that, you can then apply your ETL, extract, transform, load connectors, and all of these are also fed and backed into the software. And what we're saying is we also provide that support of you don't need to have a capability of AI engineers or AI researchers who can do this for you, because this is something that the AI factory can also support, right? So you don't need to have an entire practice on that. So we're saying that instead of, back to my point of, instead of having to invest upfront, we now have infrastructure that can allow you to use sort of on demand without a lot of CapEx spend, which is what Cassava has taken on now, to actually create these use cases for you quite quickly and break these data silos in the process.
Thank you, Prince. Boyd, I mean, we've touched in the last couple of minutes on enabling strategies and, you know, the AI factory. I think now maybe let's talk beyond financials. So what non-monetary indicators should be used to measure the success of AI initiatives in retail?
Thanks, Jackie. I think when you come back to measuring AI, there's a couple of critical pieces there. Number one, it has to be driven by business. It cannot be driven by a technology custodian or the CEO of an organization wanting a fancy chatbot. So I think number one, business has to drive the demand, because business will own the KPIs that are required. And for me, there are two types that we need to look at. One is let's call it the monetary KPIs, i.e., are you looking at top line revenue growth? Are you looking at extracting better gross margin out of your P&L and income statement? Are you looking to enhance EBITDA? The problem with some of those conversations in how rapidly AI is evolving is those are more medium to long-term metrics that will start to show themselves over the next 12 to 18 months in organizations. But the patience of investment cycles are such that many don't want to wait 12 and 18 months for a validation that the investment into an AI first strategy or into an AI factory is the right thing to do. So one of the critical things for me is how do we then help organizations focus on the short-term metrics, i.e., what are some of the customer experience elements that you want to look at? You know, when you talk customer experience, we're talking net promoter score, we're talking customer satisfaction, we're talking online conversion, etc. So the first one for me has to be customer experience, because the experience at the interface of the transaction automatically can be measured on day one, as opposed to this amorphous top line, big, hairy, audacious goal that everyone believes AI may deliver. So I think that's the one. What we are seeing, however, more importantly, are the operational metrics. In other words, how can I manage my stock levels more effectively as part of my material and resource planning structures that I have? How do I manage proper deployment of the right SKUs into my environment? How do I ensure that I am putting the correct product in the correct place at the correct price? So the operational metrics are instantaneously measurable. And that's really important in a conversation that we had with a couple of customers in Cape Town this week, is how do you arm a partner to show value almost instantaneously? So those operational metrics for me are really critical. And then finally is the intelligence and innovation. How do you show, and this links back to the customer experience, how do you create intelligence and innovation in your customer touchpoint, i.e. it's about things like adoption, it's about precision, it's about conversion rates, etc. So for me, one of the critical things we have to do is we have to show organizations how do you create value in these very short-term metrics that allows you to continue to invest in your AI journey, and the monetary metrics over time will show. And just to recap, experience, critical. Operationally, that is even more critical. When you poll some of the leading retailers across the US and across the European markets, they've seen, on average, a 72% impact on the reduction of operating costs directly attributed to the launch of AI within an operating context. And that is far greater than the monetary factors. So for me, those are the critical items that organizations need to focus on.
And just to piggyback on this conversation around value and obviously ROI, I think let's have a talk about business case. Prince, can you share a real-world example of AI directly improving revenue, customer experience that Boyd was touching on, or operational efficiency in retail?
Thanks, Jackie, for that question. So, I mean, there's a few examples. So I'll start with maybe one I've seen is with the Amazon shopping app. So they actually were able to infuse this NVIDIA GPUs into their shopping app experience. And what that created is that because when you have products, you have to go through this whole process of vetting the products, making sure that whoever is selling them is legit. So there's a lot of sort of KYC that happens in the background. So with GPU accelerated inference, they were able to actually speed that up to a point where they have 300 million extra plus products a year than what they would have normally had on their Amazon app. So that AI managed checkout also created seamless transaction. They were able to speed up their transactions by over 50x, right? So that's one example. And another example that we've seen is, you know, a prediction accuracy that that the teams at Spark used with Microsoft Cloud for retail as well. So using scalable SPA and over 90% inventory prediction accuracy, reducing stockouts and overstocking. And that creates an app that can actually deliver excellent performance even on peak demand, right? Because what you don't want is a backlog because you don't have the actual compute and the compute power to process these transactions quite quickly. You end up having a backlog and you can't actually check out quickly. So those are some of the examples. We've seen also on the Microsoft Bing side, when they did an integration with NVIDIA GPUs, they're able to enhance their visual search capabilities, because normally we use a text search capability. But if you look at it, Africa is a continent where we actually use more of you know, visual or audio type of communication, voice capabilities. We speak more on the phone more than we text, right? So these text applications may not exactly translate to our own cultural sort of background. So with these visual search capabilities and using GPUs, they were able to actually significantly reduce latency, cutting like a case of object detection from 2.5 seconds to only 40 milliseconds. So you can see drastic improvement that comes with this GPU efficient compute. And I just want to make a call out that until now, we've been a consumer, Africa has been a consumer of AI that is built somewhere else. And this AI has been built with the biases of the places it was built, like US or Europe. But until now, where we now have compute on the continent through Cassava's AI Factory, we can actually now start build our own version of distilled LLMs or LLMs that actually incorporate the biases that relate to African cultures, African experiences, and African languages. And all of this can be then infused into application to actually improve revenues, customer experience, and efficiency.
Yeah, for me, this is really exciting. Finally, we have technology that speaks to us in a language that we understand, but most importantly, reflect who we are. So yeah, I think, it's just really such an exciting and I think pioneering initiative that you guys have put together. Prince, a lot of the retailers or a lot of the people who are on this call are probably saying to themselves, so yeah, so we've made the decision to invest in AI. What about impact? So maybe can you touch on a little bit on what is a realistic time frame for a retailer to start seeing tangible results from their AI investment?
Yeah, so on average, we're seeing that you can measure, you can, with the AI factory, you can see a result in as quickly as 3 months, right? But a realistic measurement will be about 12 months, 12 to 18 months, then you can actually see the returns on your cost saving or revenue impact and things like that. So the whole idea is that from month 0 to month 3, really what you want to be doing is looking at your data readiness assessment. Where is your data? Where are the silos that we need to break? And then you can create a baseline model through our AI factory in less than 6 weeks. So we can actually create like a prototype baseline model based on wherever your data is sitting in less than 6 to 8 weeks. Then that will be a prototype version. At that point, you can't measure impact yet, right? So after 3 to 6 months, then we can say, let's deploy this model that we've created, whether it's a restocking model that helps with your inventory and pricing models, and that can lead to your metric here is really just seeing stockouts. Like, how can you be better at predicting stockouts? So that model, if you deploy it within 3 to 6 months, after 6 months, then you can start to expand that and scale it. And when you scale it, you can measure that revenue impact in about 12 months. So we expect, for this example I've given of like a stock prediction model, inventory management model, we expect that in 6 to 12 months, you should at least have achieved about 5 to 10% revenue impact, 3 to 7% cost savings. And that's what we've seen from other applications that have been applied based on the NVIDIA GPU AI factory in this retail specific scenario.
I think, Boyd, I'm gonna let you answer this question, and just an acknowledgement that we are seeing the questions coming in. Boyd and Dr. Prince are gonna address those questions. And while we are sort of just delving into some of the questions that you're posing on this chat, I'm also gonna post a poll question that we want you to sort of just engage in and answer a couple of questions for us. So we definitely would appreciate that. Boyd, when it comes to the fact that retailers are not all the same sizes. So not every retailer is a tech giant. So how does All as a Service AIaaS help smaller or mid-tier retailers access sophisticated AI capabilities?
Thanks, Jackie. I think I want to just go back one step quickly, is that what some of our colleagues on the webinar may not know is that during the Biden administration, there was a Diffusion Act that was brought into law in the US. And really, without going into too much detail, it was about how does the US control supply of GPUs across the globe and ensuring that there is a management of that supply. And Africa, as an amorphous mass, has been on the forefront of limitation of supply. Prince made note of that. So I think one of the critical things is that the supply of GPUs into the continent will continue to be constrained until the partnerships with the US and some of the other markets are more democratized to the extent that there's a free flow of GPUs into the market. So that actually means that there's a high degree of limitation in context of how any industry can access GPUs. So one of the critical things is we've managed through NVIDIA to ink our partnership to ensure that we were part of creating large amounts of supply. So that's the one piece I think it's really critical. The second piece is capital. A single H200 GPU in ZAR terms is probably north of R500,000 for one GPU. So any organization that is looking to invest in a high degree of processing power would need to go and outlay that capital. And that capital, to do it on scale for a mid-sized retailer, even a small retailer, is largely just not viable. So part of what we've built is not just bringing GPUs into our AI factory, but offering a broad suite of platform as a service and software as a service elements within our stack that then allows for you to access the asset in any way you want. Some retailers may want to access the asset in context of a reserved instance for 12 months, where I say, listen, I need 500 GPU hours per month for the next 12 months. Or alternatively, there is a particular retailer that says, I don't need that demand. I just want to ensure that I have access to the GPU utilization as I need to. And then the final piece is, how do you interact with the hyperscalers? Partnering with the hyperscalers is critical, but also it becomes very complex for a small organization. You've got a modern workplace set of licenses. You may have some workloads in Azure or AWS, but accessing this high degree of computational power becomes very difficult in a hyperscaler environment for a small organization. And there are two things. One is cost, and the other is many times you're accessing databases that sit in Europe. So how do we help small organizations and create what I call a democratization of access to these assets? So for me, CapEx really critical, proper managed services or professional services for these smaller retailers. And how do we create access to data sovereignty solutions for them and help them get through a managed service far more easier than a large organization typically would have. These organizations don't have data scientists, they don't have hundreds of people doing application development, etc. And the AI Factory Foundation allows for that to be managed as a service.
Thank you so much. Yeah, hey, time ticks exceedingly quicketh when you are changing the continent. So let us get into our Q&A. Thank you so much for everybody who shared their questions with us. And if for whatever reason your questions are not covered within this particular session, our team will basically have noted everybody's questions and we'll share them with Boyd and Prince and their team. Okay, so our first question is from Jeroboam. I hope I said your name properly, Zondi. And he says, hi, Dr. Abudu. Where in Africa is the agentic AI journey? What is needed for the continent to catch up with the rest of the world? Should there be a slow progress? What strategies would you share to get us started? That's for Dr. Prince.
Yeah, great question. So I'll try to answer quickly so we can get to as many questions as possible. I would say that Africa's issue at the moment is that we have segmented, or I say siloed success stories, right? We have some startups we're seeing in West Africa who are doing really, really well on agentic AI. I can give you an example, one called Mino Health. They actually are at par with world standards when it comes to that. But these are very, different individual success stories that we're seeing. So where we need to get to is we need to rapidly speed up our creation of ecosystems, ensuring that startups, researchers, governments, enterprises are all working together on a single framework that enables us to actually accelerate our AI adoption and our AI understanding. So what Africa needs to do is to create AI factories, which is exactly what we have done, because that will speed up how we can provide these development platforms and LLMs, base models for developers anyway to just come and tap into Cassava's AI factory and then start building and speed up this agentic process. So that's part of what we need to do.
Excellent. Second question from Shabana says, oh, at least this is a comment. I assumed this AI factory is the same as Harvard's business view of an AI factory. So question one is, does the US partnership impact the NVIDIA H100/200, etc., GPUs, procurement related to FX exposure? And then I'm just going to go into the second question because there's just a few questions she has here. Will you roll our open source models and API connectivity to models like AI, Hugging Face, etc.? Or will the client bring the models we want access in private rails and we RAG and fine tune them? Yeah, this is a lot of techies. But I don't know.
Shabana, yeah, well, I would expect nothing less from Shabana. A good question. I think I touched on the first part, which was really the supply relationship with NVIDIA and the US, and our agreements with NVIDIA over the next 12, 18, 24, and 36 months have been such that we are front and center as a NVIDIA cloud partner, and we are the first AI factory on the continent. So we've managed to solve the supply constraints that I spoke to relating to the Diffusion Act. I think also importantly is that what's critical for us is that we have to create localization, as I mentioned. So in South Africa, we will have ZAR-based pricing. In other markets that we will deploy in phase 2, we will have local-based pricing that gives organizations protection around the exposure to the forex fluctuations on the dollar. So I think that's a really important piece for us. Currently, on the hyperscalers, you don't have that. And the second piece linked to that is data sovereignty. Storage of data locally is a critical piece. So again, this whole notion of localization. The other piece also is that there's two parts to the value proposition. The use case component is critical. And we have a wealth of access and libraries with NVIDIA around, let's call it, off-the-shelf use cases. I think what's really important is that organizations need to start looking at how do I start organizing my data more effectively. In other words, instead of going to a use case, some organizations may not have advanced AWS enterprise data warehousing. So how do I start utilizing an AI factory to go and sort my data in a manner that gives me value back, i.e., when I interrogate a database and I ask for a very, very binary single question, it's going to give me the answer I want. What an AI factory will allow us to do outside of the use cases, through APIs and through workloads, start interrogating databases in a far more agentic and a complex fashion. And that's really where the value is going to come from, in our view, from an AI factory in the short term.
Yeah. Thanks, Boyd, for that. So I wanted to add to the other two questions. Will you roll out open source models? The answer is yes. Our plan is to have more than 200 of the open source models and other proprietary models on our platform. So already talking to partners like Mistral, Anthropic, OpenAI to have their models on our platform so you can access them using local billing. Then on the climate impact question, our data centers are following the latest technology when it comes to energy and things like that. So we're actually looking at green energy at the moment, and we'll use direct-to-chip liquid cooling in the future generation of the chips that we'll get. So we're following that quite closely. Just adding that.
Okay, we've got about 2 minutes left. So this question will come from Kudzai. And Kudzai would like to know, give me 2 seconds, let me clear my screen. Regarding the data ingestion and preparation phase within your AI factory, what level of data maturity do you expect from your clients? What tools and services do you provide to handle data cleaning, transformation, and ensuring data quality at scale before it even enters the factory?
Awesome question.
A great question.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, I've got a minute. So we've only got a minute. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so yeah, quite simply, we don't expect any level of maturity from our client, right? Everyone comes at different levels of maturity, but the good place to start from is to have an assessment done with us. We have a framework for an AI readiness assessment. So let's do that. And then we can go from there. In terms of tools of data cleaning, transformation, ensuring data quality, we have quite a wide array of those within our NVIDIA Enterprise software suite, right? So the actual, just going into the data cleaning and staging capabilities of it, if you understand, we have NVIDIA Rapids, which provides GPU accelerated data processing capabilities. We have NVIDIA Morpheus, which then also helps with the data pipelines and tools for parsing, cleansing, enriching structured or semi-structured data at scale. We do have data integration that has ETL via Rapids as well, and Spark Rapids plugins inside the NVIDIA Enterprise that already accelerate any existing Spark-based ETL jobs that you may have. So with that, we have NIMS, which is NVIDIA Inference Microservices. We have NVIDIA NeMo, which allows you to do your data curation, data customization, data evaluation, set guardrails, and things like that. So all these tools and services already exist within this licensing. And if you were to make a partnership with us, then you would have accessibility to them and also accessibility to the expertise that can help you fit any data of any structure.
Oh, okay. So I'm pretty sure, Boyd, you also have a lot to say. So
we are
unfortunately, yeah, we are definitely out of time. Thank you so much to you, Boyd, and Dr. Prince. This is definitely a sign that Africa is ready to shape the future of digital transformation. And thank you, everybody, for making the time to participate in this watershed conversation. And yeah, so for the ones who still have the questions, we're going to share them with Boyd and Prince. Please don't worry, don't stress. And then the recording will also be shared with you. I know that's definitely a question that all of you will have. Yeah, but from me, Jackie, thank you again. Thank you again. We've come to the end. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye. Thank you.